Hello, my name's Sarah Jahangri. Welcome to our session focused on math lessons for grades 6 through 8 that can be utilized in your intervention groups. I am the Director of Statewide and Strategic Partnerships with Discovery Education and your main point of contact throughout the school year. So even though we're spending this short time together, I would like you to know that you can reach out to me at any time through my email at sjahangri@discoveryed.com. So feel free after this to ask questions, and I will also be holding some office hours, and we'll be sharing that information at the end of our session so that you can follow up with questions then as well. During our time together, we're going to review how to access Discovery Education in your platform. We're really going to be focusing the majority of our time on some custom math lessons that have been developed for you and your students. We're going to talk about how they're structured, where you can find them, how you can make copies of them and add them to your Discovery Education login, and then also how you can share those links with your students. We're also going to be exploring an investigation fun program that you can utilize with your students either at the beginning or end of your sessions, just to engage them in some fun practice focused on fluency in a program called Archidemics. And then we'll review those office hours and additional supports that you have to help you get started and to be successful with implementing these lessons with your students. So let's dive in. First thing I want to make sure that you know is how to access Discovery Education. This might be your first time ever logging in. So there's a few ways that you can access the content. And for these particular lessons, I'm going to encourage you to go to lausd.discoveryeducation.com and log in with your LAUSD email and password. If it's your first time logging in, it will ask you a few questions to complete your profile, and then it'll take you to your homepage. And then from there, you'll have access to thousands of resources, including songs, videos, ready-to-use lessons, activities, all aligned to standards to support your students in all grade levels, all subject areas. But for this particular session, we are focused on some custom lessons that are not in the platform, but you'll need your login to get in. So if you log in through lausd.discoveryeducation.com, when you click the links on the document I'll share with you, they will work so that they will take you directly to the lessons. And that'll make sense here in a few minutes. Now, for your students, I always like to point out how they can access, because they can always follow up after your sessions with them. They can use Discovery Education to help support them in all their subjects and find really great content. So they can go to lausd.discoveryeducation.com and log in with their LAUSD email and password. That's one way. They can also go to their waffle at the top of their Schoology page, and in the dropdown, they'll see Discovery Education there, and that will log them in, as well as their teacher might have added the app to their courses in school. So the teacher would have gone to the App Center, typed in Discovery, searched and found the Discovery Education experience, selected that, and then they would have installed it into their apps and into their courses by clicking Install LTI app, agreeing, selecting the courses they wanted in. And then once they install it, the student will see it on the left-hand side in their teacher's courses as well. So you're able to do this in any courses that you lead. I always like to point that out just so that you know you have access that way, and so do your students as well. If you have any questions about logging in or adding the app, please email me. Happy to help, or attend office hours. So let's go ahead and dive into the math lessons that we've created. So just some general information to start out with. Each grade level, you're going to find on the document I'm going to show you here in a minute, will have 20 custom lessons per grade level. And on the document, you're going to see a range from K to 8. And I know we're focused on middle school here, but there might be some standards that your students need to go back to and review, or maybe they need support in because they're missing that one piece that's helping them progress and meet the grade level standards that they're working on now. So we wanted to give you access to all of the K-8 custom lessons so that you had all of the tools at your disposal to be able to plan your lessons and meet the needs in your group. You'll notice in the 20 lessons that each topic has 4 lessons on it. That'll make sense here in a few minutes. So there's 4 lessons, so 5 different groups of lessons or topics, 4 lessons per topic. They're all aligned to your math Common Core standards, and your students will only need basic tools to complete these. So paper, pencil, they are designed to be done on with paper and pencil, not to be done digitally. But if you want, there might be times where they're coloring or they're graphing, things like that. So crayons and markers can be helpful as well, graph paper, things like that. Now, we really wanted these to be engaging and encourage student voice. So you're going to see things like spotlight on strategies, where you have your students discuss the content or describe or write about the math problem. We know that that's all a part of that constructivist model. We want our students to practice listening and speaking skills as they're working through the math and make those connections to real world problems. So you'll see that throughout the lessons. And I really want to emphasize that these lessons were designed to be projected by you and worked through as a group. They are not meant to be assigned to your students individually. You have other programs that do that so that they can work on fluency and some very diagnostic work. These are meant to be led whole group and projected, and for you to walk the students through the activities together. So that's really important to note. And you can share the links with your students, and when they log in, it will give them access to the content, but they will not be able to answer the questions digitally. They would have to answer them on paper and pencil still. So those are just a couple tips and tricks and some information about the lessons. So let's look at the document where all the lessons are located. You're going to receive a resource guide that will have a link to this document here. It's called Discovery Education Math Lessons. And you'll notice right away at the bottom, there are several tabs. I'm right now on grade 7, but whatever grade you're supporting, you're going to see grade level lessons for that particular grade. But again, you have access to all of the lessons, so you can always go back and work on standards that your students might be struggling with in these intervention groups. When you come up to the top, you'll notice that there's, again, in grade 7, there's 20 lessons here. Now, the yellow line helps break up that. Remember, there's 5 topics. All topics have 4 lessons. So you'll see that there. So you'll see first that you have the standard that it's working on. So grade 7, those first 4 lessons are all on the topic of applying properties of operations as strategies to add, subtract, factor, and expand linear expressions with rational coefficients. So that's the grade level standard that they're working on through those 4 lessons that are here. You'll see in the column C, it will describe the learning target for each of those days. And then in column E, you'll see the actual link to the lessons. And each day has its own studio board, which is our equivalent to a PowerPoint within the Discovery Education platform. So that will take you to each of those individual lessons. Now, right now, again, these do not live in your Discovery Education login, but in a little bit, I'm going to show you how you can make copies of these and actually add them to your login so that you don't have to keep coming back to find all of these lessons, that you can add them if you wish. But if you just want to use the document and keep it simple, click on the link, open your lesson and project it, that's fantastic. You're definitely able to do that and make it really easy to utilize during your group time. So let's go ahead and walk through one of these lessons. They're all structured very similarly, and they obviously have different content, but they're structured in the same way for as you go through the different lessons. So let's go ahead and click on one. And I'm opening, again, grade 7, day 1. You'll notice through the 4 days, there's a theme through those 4 lessons. And this one is people who made a difference. So change makers is the topic. And so you'll see references to change makers. You'll see references to different science topics, social studies topics. We always want to show students that, everything that we're doing is related, and there are some things that are engaging in here to definitely support your students as they go through the content. I'm going to come back to these in a little bit, but on the first day of the 4 days of lessons, there will be a learning choice board there. It's an additional piece of content. What is really great is there's some really little mini lessons here that make real world connections to jobs that use this math or use math within the job responsibilities. So it's one of those real world connection pieces. But if we have time, we'll come back to that. You'll notice that every day there's a way to engage the students and bring them into the topic. So in this one, they'll be observing these 3 pictures, and then they'll see some information here, and you want them to notice, like, what do you think we might be talking about today? What are some things that we will be working on? So, some of the concepts here are equivalent, balance, because you can see the balance here. Different things and topics that they might come up with. Again, getting that conversation going, getting the kids excited about the topic. What does all of this math or these numbers have to do with a gentleman spinning a basketball on the tip of his finger? So really just to get the kids engaged and excited. Then the learning targets will be there, and you'll see it. They're going to be able to combine like terms. That's what they'll be learning about, and able to identify equivalent expressions using the distributive property to create equivalent expressions. So those are some of they're going to expand and use distributive property. Now, this is a second piece here. We did put some social emotional learning lessons in here. If you have time in your day, there are some really fun wellness and community building lessons that you have. You can completely ignore these slides, but we always like to include that wellness piece in there. Now we're going to get into those real world connections. So the students, this is going to give some answers to those first 3 pictures that they saw, that they showed something that is equal or balanced or the same as the other. So introducing that word of equivalency, we're making those connections to what they saw in those first 3 images. And then it'll give some questions that they'll be answering as they go through. And you'll see there's a little video here that will actually make some real world connections to when are equivalent expressions used in the real world. So we want them to always like, why am I learning this math concept? We want them to know why. And so they'll see that this math is used every day in careers, in the life that we live. So they'll make some connections right there. So day 1, we try to bring in a lot of those connections. Now we're going to get into actually learning some of the content. So they are going to watch a video about simplifying algebraic expressions, collecting like terms. So the person who is teaching on this video is going to walk the students through terms, like terms. She does a really nice job of making some connections. She calls certain things ingredients, and shows how you're combining or shrinking up the equation. She makes things that are really relatable. So using A like apple or B like banana cakes, and helping them make connections, and really does a nice job of explaining how you can combine like terms. This will give the students some opportunity to build background knowledge, also bring up prior knowledge that they might have learned in the year before around this standard, and filling in some of those holes. So that's really great. And then here's one of those first spotlight on strategies to have the conversation. So ABC summary is a strategy that you can combine with this video, where the students would pick a letter and they will start a sentence to talk about what they know about long term. So if I get the letter L, I could say, like terms means I'm combining numbers and symbols that are the same. So, I might, use whatever vocabulary your students will use different vocabulary. We want it in student voice. I'm not maybe using the proper expression, but I want my students to try to explain what they just saw so they can make those connections for yourself. What we love about this, and why I used an example like that, is that if there is any kind of misunderstanding that the student is happening, you'll hear that as they're expressing, and then you can correct that in real time. So getting them to react to the actual video with these strategies is very, very important, and will definitely help point out where there's some misunderstandings or misconceptions that the students have. So we'll go on. And so they've just learned about combining those like terms. They'll be able to come in here and have 2 practice questions. So if you have those interactive little whiteboards, you can do this with your students. If you have using paper and pencil, great. But again, this is meant to be projected, and you work through these 2 statements together, or these 2 equations together. So they would go through and write an equivalent expression based on the answers here. And then it's going to also bring in a little bit about another way to find equivalence, which is through the distributive property. So they will see that here with expanding expressions and be able to see, explain that term vocabulary. And then the students will go into watching either a tutorial, which they have here, or review examples in the video about distributive property, because they were going to learn about that. So just review what that is. They've been learning about distributive property for a few years now as they're coming into grade 7. So bringing that up. And then there is, again, an opportunity to check for understanding, having the students write their expressions using all of that vocabulary and the types of ways to make equivalent fractions in one spot. So again, having them practice what they've learned and to show what they know. So doing this together. And then this is a fun part in the lesson. They're actually going to come in and they're going to go through an interactive. Now, usually, interactives are done individually by students, but again, by projecting, you can pull this up. It's an actual interactive in real time where the students will be able to use algebra tiles to expand their expression. So we've brought in a manipulative electronically. So if you don't have those algebra tiles in your class, you might. If you do, great, break them out and have the students practice hands-on as you do this together, or just do it together using the virtual algebra tiles. It can be just as meaningful, but having the whole group do this together, again, is going to bring up misconceptions, to clarify, and to work together through the problems. And the last part of this particular lesson, they are going to try one. They're going to simplify an expression, and then they'll explain it to their friend. They don't have to do the writing, but if that is somewhere you feel your students could do that, there's a little extended piece there to record their expression and write a brief letter to Dr. Jamison, who's a change maker, about explaining the process. So we brought in some change makers to give some real people in the world that are change makers, make that connection to the theme. And then here are some other sample problems. And then there's a way for them to reflect. Now, you might notice there's quite a lot of content in this lesson, and your small group might be only 45 minutes or whatever it is, and you need a little extra time to do this. You could break this lesson up into 2 lessons, just depending on where your students are. And that's really, there's some autonomy there to expand these out if you need to. If you want to work in more examples, you can. A lot of flexibility there, but really wanted to give you enough content to pick from and to choose that you think is meeting the needs of your students. Now, this is one of those spotlight on strategies. It's a fun one. It's always a nice way to reflect at the end of the day. They can write down words that describe what they're doing. How did it make them feel? What was interesting about what they learned? Did something surprise them? What questions do they still have? You could just pick one of those questions and have them share with you. And then if you share the link with your students, there's always an extend your thinking. So when they go to that link, they'll have these 2 videos at the end that will review some of the concepts that they learned about expanding expressions and the distributive property. So it gives them, again, a little bit more of content. Now, one thing I want to point out is that you do have some accessibility tools in here that are really great. So if you do share the link with your students and they want to take this home and they want to work through some of the content, they have Immersive Reader here to the right. You can also use this in class where it will pull the text out and play, use text to speech.
Help. Dr. Molina has a problem. Juan and Carlos each reviewed how a student found an equivalent expression.
You can see a really nice fluency with the actual text-to-speech reader. You can speed up or slow down that speed, change to male to female. There's some other tools up here in the right-hand corner. For those of you who aren't familiar with Immersive Reader, you can increase and decrease size, increase spacing, change fonts, background colors. You can syllabize any words. So if you're working on decoding still, you have the little book here at the top with line focuses. If you need that accessibility feature, you got picture dictionary here. So if a word does have a picture that goes along with it, it'll show up there. They can read just one word.
Work.
And then it also has translation. So if you have students who also need native language support, you can just translate one word. There's over 70 languages to choose from, powered through Microsoft. And if they have the narrative or the narration, they can also hear that word in that language. So like work, they could hear it in Spanish as well.
Trabajo.
And then also you can translate the whole document. So if you need support in maybe translating something for your students, you have that there as well. It will read it in that language.
Ayuda. El doctor Molina tiene un problema.
And then they can toggle between English and Spanish here at the top. So that's in all of your studio lessons. You'll have that accessibility feature there as well. So again, on your document, come to your grade level. You'll see there's 4 lessons per theme, 5 different themes. And then all of the standards are here that you're working on to the left-hand side. Again, you can go up and down in grade level. If you need support with other lessons, you do have that ability as well. So you can go to the other grade levels and see what they have. If there are particular standards that might support your students and filling in some of those gaps that might be hindering them being able to access the content at their grade level. All right, so that's a little bit about those lessons, those documents. One thing else that I wanted to share with you really quickly is that you can make a copy if you don't want to. Again, you can click the link, project it, keep it simple. But you can also make copies of these lessons so that you always have them in your Discovery Education login. So if you want to do that, you just open up the link and you'll notice up here. Actually, let me go to one that might not be in there yet. I've already made a copy of that one. So I'm going to go to a different lesson. I'm going to go 6th grade. Let's go 7th grade. And I'm going to go down to like number 20 because I don't think I have that copied into my lesson here. I want to make sure that I show you how to do this in live time. So if you've not made a copy yet, have it up here. Copy at the top. You just click copy. Copy and continue. When you see this draft here, that means that you can make edits to this. So you can come in here, add slides. Like for example, if you don't want that choice board at the beginning, or you don't want the SEL lesson, you can move these around. I might move that all the way to the end because I'm not interested in having that today, so that you can manipulate the board. And then once you've made any edits you want to do, you just go share, share. And now this is your copy of the lesson, and you can always tweak anything in Discovery Education. Now, when I go into Discovery Ed in my login on my homepage, all of the lessons I make copies of will go into Studio. So if you wanted to copy the lessons under 6, 7, and 8, and so that you have all of them, or 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 to have all of those lessons in your Studio collection, you can. That way you don't have to depend on that document. If it gets lost, everything's going to be in your Studio there. And I have hundreds of Studio boards, so they take a long time to load, but all of them will be in your Studio tile up here at the top. So again, to make a copy, you would just come up to the right-hand corner, click copy, copy and share, and then it will copy and continue, share, share, and then it will be here for you to either edit or to utilize with your students, and they will be underneath your Studio tile in your login, and you won't have to depend on that document anymore. But of course, we'll have this open. We're not going to take this away. This will be open throughout the year, and nothing will change from it. Okay, I hope that's helpful. All right, so let's continue on. I have one more thing I wanted to share with you, and that's these academics. And you might be saying, Oh my goodness, Sarah, those look really for young kids. We do have a 6 through 8 math connection or math investigations. And even though they are animated, the kids love them. I mean, we watch The Simpsons and we still love animation, and so do children. They love animation all the way up, but the skills that they're working on in academics are at grade level for middle school. So to find that collection, I've put the direct link on your resource guide, but you can come into your login and you can type in academics, it'll pop up. And you just click that little blue magnifying glass and the channel or collection of those investigations will be there. You want to go into the channel because here you won't know what's a kindergarten one versus one that's for, middle school. So if you come into the academics collection, scroll down to where it says 6-8 math, and then you'll see all types of investigations here on different topics. So for example, orbit integers. If your students are struggling with adding and subtracting integers, this is a really great investigation to do with your group. To again, like either review that concept, you're going to be going into combining or simplifying expressions, and you want to work on adding and subtracting those integers, positive and negative. This can be a powerful way to open up your lesson. So you could just project the lesson from here. The students can log in and search for this too and play on their own, but it's really fun if you do it as a group. You go ahead and go play now. You can play again. The students can play against each other or against the computer. We're going to play against the computer, count you down, 3, 2, 1. And then once it goes, it'll give you a question here. So you get to come up with the answer. And as you go through, it will have you answer. So they want the kids' fluency to really increase. So as much as you can go there, if you do give a wrong answer, you'll hear that noise change. So it will record anything that is missed. And you can always go back and talk about those things, or you can try to beat the score. So as you're going through with the kids, it's going to help them work on that fluency. You can track where you are in the game. Once it finishes, it will share how much accuracy you have. But again, maybe just bringing up that topic of before we even get into the distributive property or expanding expressions, that we really review how do we add or subtract integers. Now, it will show you what place you can in. You can always try to beat. If there's something you're working on all week, you can try to get that accuracy up. You can try to get your place and line up, all of that good stuff. So it's a fun way to work with your students and bring them into the topic or review at the end of the day. So that will be on your resource guide as well. So speaking of your resource guide, it looks very simple, looks like this. On the last few pages, there are some screenshots of how to access Discovery Ed, but on the front page, you'll see how to log in. This is the really important link, that second one, that's going to get you to all of those custom lessons. Remember, they're not in your platform, so you need to go to this link to get your Excel document with all of your 20 lessons for your grade level there. And then there's the direct link to academics as well. In addition to that, you'll find some on-demand resources to help you out, including a job aid on how to copy a studio board. If you wanted to do that, you have that there. Discovery Education and Schoology, and then additional resources. Now you can go to this bit.ly link to get your resource guide, or you could take a screenshot or capture your QR code here and access that way and email it to yourself through your phone. Either way will work and take you directly here. You can also email, if you're having any trouble, email me. I can just email it to you as well. But again, I just want to emphasize when you come in, you just want to click that Discovery Education Math Lessons link, and that will take you to the grid where all your lessons are there for you. All right. And then a couple other things. Oh, I wanted to show you, this is what it looks for your students when they log in. They can come in and type academics here, and they will get that full collection. So if they want to play at home, they can. So there's all of those games there. They can also come in and search anything that they want to in mathematics, ELA, science, social studies. They can search for content and we'll find tons of resources, or they can go to their Explore tab There's going to be all kinds of suggestions for different things that might be of interest to them there as well. So your students, when they log in, have access to the full library. I also put in some screenshots here if you want to take a quick screenshot about how to add a studio lesson to your studio tile. So if you want to take a quick screenshot of that, I'll leave that up for a second. It's really easy. Again, click copy, copy and continue, share, share, and then go to your studio tile in your navigation bar and you'll see all of your lessons there. And then just to let you know about your educator supports, you do have a tab in your row, the top row of your Discovery Education homepage. Let me go there really quickly. And you'll have all kinds of job aids to continue your learning. Go to educator supports, go to getting started, and you'll find all kinds. If you want to learn more about Discovery Education, you've got all kinds of really great resources here. And I'm going to be doing another session for you to, that you'll get to view that will talk about the math textbook in your lessons. There is also an interactive for the math textbook here, which is a full little mini course and some step-by-step guides. Here's your interactive course that will take you through the essentials for navigating that resource. It's a privilege to work with you. And thank you for teaching these sessions and for supporting your students every day. Have a wonderful, wonderful day. Bye.